Well, I don't think that's going anywhere. Seems to have stopped. Okay, give up. So, g'day everybody. Sorry about the header there, didn't work for some reason. And it's now 9 o'clock here in Cape Town, 26th of October. The time is ticking by. We're sitting in the office thinking, crikey, we're nearly into the last week and we've only got 6 boats in. So, a few things of the going, what do we do? Play it by ear, see what happens. We're trying to work out how we schedule the briefings and so on. But anyway, it's six here and 8 to go, but there's a bit of action in the next couple of days. So we will see some boats come through. If you saw the lives for L'Esprit d'Equipe last night, that was kind of fun. We went out there, we had a mad panic. They told us, they're coming. They radioed and said they'd be there in 20 minutes, but just got off the tracker. We knew it wasn't the case, but we had to rush out there anyway. And sure enough, they got bogged down in calm. So we sat and waited, and then eventually they turned up and had a nice little crossing. Ada did great commentary. It was a lot of French because it's a French boat and has a reasonable following in the Sable d'Olonne and other parts of France as well. So it was great to see them in. And then this morning we had Outlaw turn up. They sailed a brilliant race coming down on the eastern side of the track. And it got really risky. I update a lot of people. We have a WhatsApp group and I keep giving updates. And I said early in the morning, it's getting risky because they're sort of 5 miles away doing 1 knot or something, 1.5 knots. But if they get a puff, they'll take off. So we're all back at the office. And all of a sudden we see, they've got a puff. So it was a mad scramble. And we just got there in time. So it was kind of fun. Anyway, we got there and had them about 150 metres or something, and then they seconds before they crossed the line, they popped their historic spinnaker. So that was good, and then we had a bit of a mix-up with the mics on the dock, so there's a big blank in the audio there, but it was great to see them, and they're having a nice time now. They've hit the showers, had a feed, all the rest of it. So they're on a high. Once we put the actual 32-hour compensation for picking up that guy in the canoe up by Dakar, put that in, and their performance is actually quite impressive. So it's all good news for them. And we'll now look at the tracker. Let's go to the tracker and we'll start talking about boats and ETAs for Triana and Neptune for tomorrow. And then we go into White Shadow the next day, and then there'll be a bit of a halt because there's some big headwinds coming. Anyway, it gets a bit quicker now because there's less boats. We've got poor old Godspeed up the top here, pretty much parked, doing 2 knots still, and they haven't made much progress at all. They're sitting in what is the remnants of a sort of I don't know what you call it, because it's just this hole. It's trying to be a high, but it's just this sort of hole of nothing. If we look at, before we start talking about all the boats, we'll look at the general picture for the South Atlantic. Still dominated by this big low pressure system here, and there's a high pressure system squeezed in between the two, and that's just moving over Explorer at the moment, and quite a substantial southwesterly flow coming up from the Southern Ocean, and that's driving the next 3 boats, driving them very impressively towards Cape Town with some really good following breezes, which you only get every so often here. As you know, we talk about the southeasterlies. So that's a bit of a look at what's going on, the big hole for Godspeed. And they're, a bit too far. They're sitting there, and there's one coming over the top of Explorer. So the back bunches, 2 knots for Godspeed. They're now the end of the fleet, 1,400 miles to go. Explorer's not the end of the fleet now. They're doing 5 knots. Trundling along, still got a bit of breeze to keep it happening, and they're 1,200 miles from the finish. So they've picked up a couple of hundred on Godspeed, and they're on a race to get here before the restart on the 5th. But let's wait and see what happens. All good on that department. I think I'll just look at these 2 boats and just see what's happening with the weather as we go forward, and it's pretty self-explanatory. This is coming into tomorrow. It moves very quickly over the top of Explorer, so she'll slow down then and start to pick up again by tomorrow midday-ish. She'll start to get this sort of northeasterly that's going to roll into a northerly. Sadly for Godspeed, you can see what's happened. When the wind finally kicks in, it's right on the button, so they're going to have a bit of a struggle, and I think it's going to go for a while because they're above the high. So you can see here, more headwinds, more direct headwinds. In the green, you've got sort of 20 knots pushing up 25. As soon as you get in these yellow bits here, is 28 knots. Now 28 knots to 30 knots gusting, maybe a bit higher. That's quite solid headwinds. So it puts a demand and pressure on the boat and the crew. So this is day 2. Is coming into day 2, and you can see still headwinds. What they'll do, obviously, is head south. I'm sure that you'll see them start to head south in all this, which is a good thing. They need to get down here to approach Cape Town at the end of the day. So that's pretty cool. Now, by the time there's bigger winds here, this northerly comes, Explorer should be pushing along, and Mark will absolutely be heading down south a bit. You'll see him head down, make the most of that. He knows what's required. So I'm very confident that as they're moving forward, they'll be coming down here. He knows the importance of getting down. So let's see if he proves me wrong. That's pretty much a target point there. It's 10 degrees east of Greenwich and 40 degrees south of south latitude. And once you get there, you can easily head up, or usually you can easily head up. Okay, so I think that's what you'll see happen. So generally not too bad for Explorer, and it's still sort of okay, these headwinds, because they're not going to push that way. They'll just come over on port tack and start diving down, and that's not so bad, not a bad thing to do. So back to current real-time weather. Let's look at the middle of the fleet. In fact, we'll do the whole lot here because I think we can build this up big enough to look at what's going on. Where's Evrika? There we go. So you've got this fantastic breeze for everyone making miles at the moment, and it's driven by this system down here. It's a bit of a flow off from the low pressure system way down in the Southern Ocean. So, the nice southwesterly airflow, and everyone's loving it. So Triana doing 8.1 knots and not far to go. She's only got 89 miles to go. And that's going to be 10, 11 hours. So in 11 hours from now, you're going to see potentially, if Triana can hold that speed all the way in, you will see her cross the finish line. Now, that puts it in about 8 o'clock in the morning. Usually, though, what will happen is she'll slow down a bit, and, I'd say it's probably going to be about 9 o'clock. So not too bad an arrival time for us. That's kind of cool, but we'll keep an eye on that, and I'll certainly update the ETA around about 6 o'clock in the morning. So then Neptune doing really well as well, 8.7 knots, 227 miles to go. That puts her about 4 hours behind Triana. So if Triana gets in around 9 o'clock, you can expect to see Neptune around 12:1. I had said online in the update some hours ago that there was a lack of wind towards Cape Town. That looks like it's going to not be the case now. So the chances for Neptune to compress and gain substantial ground or gain 10 miles on Triana may not prove possible now, because it looks like that breeze is going to go in, but we'll look at that in a minute. White Shadow doing real well, 7.6 knots and distance to the finish 240 miles. That puts her, if these guys get it, the first two get in tomorrow morning and around midday, I think you're going to see White Shadow sometime on Saturday morning. And that's a good thing because there's some heavy weather coming. And if she can squeak into that, it's not going to hold her up. Okay, that's the first thing I can tell you without looking at the weather, because I know what's coming. The next one is we've got Evrika, Sterner, and Galliana pretty much in a straight line heading towards Cape Town. So Galliana doing 8.5 knots now. I need to push this up a bit. 8.5 knots, and she's got 390 miles to go. That would normally mean sometime on late Sunday, but these winds that are coming, you'll see, is going to slow them up. All these three boats, they won't be in before the wind turns dramatically into the head of them. So they'll be pushing into windward, which means they're going to sail a longer distance, they're going to slow down, and they're going to bounce around a bit. So Stern